Hello everyone, Slickcan Gamer. It's that time for another review of another episode of MLP, and I think maybe Season 7 is really starting to hit its stride, because I personally feel like we've been hitting good episode after good episode after all bottled up, so I think we're starting to hit ourselves with a very good stride, and tonight's episode we have yet another good episode, so let's get into it, which is To Change a Changeling. So this episode basically starts out at the newly reformed Changeling hive with Starlight and Trixie.
How to do it? Well, not exactly straight, Starlight. We've been popping all around Equestria, and we still have to walk. It's like 12 steps away. Before Chrysalis's throne was destroyed, the closest magic would have gotten us was way over there.
And way over there, mean by that cliff that you had just passed.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy do you think Thorax is going to be about our surprise visit? Definitely 10. I mean, who wouldn't be happy at the chance to marvel at the overwhelming talent that is the great and powerful Trixie?
Well, it did give me some time for me to get used to it. But yeah, essentially, this is a Starlight and Trixie episode and no mention of the main six. Basically what's going on is that Starlight and Trixie are going to be having a surprise visit for Thorax.
Yeah, I know. That's basically what I said. He's dealing with the wants and needs of his subjects. Redesigning the hive, a dread Malworth wreaking havoc outside. It does sound like a lot, but...
So yeah, so you know how some people complain in Celestial Advice that how everybody just assumed that Thorax was automatically a great leader? Well, this episode and the last episode pretty much squashes all assumptions and is basically saying that, yes, while Thorax is the new leader of the hive, he's still essentially struggling a bit as the new leader. As essentially we also find out what a Dread Malworth is.
Are you sure that last thing is real? The Dread Malworth? Sure it is. Thorax said it's like half bear, half mole, half raging pile of claws.
So, I'm assuming, excluding the last part, it's basically half bear, half mole. A Dread Malworth. Well, if it's a Dread Malworth, but if it's half bear, half mole, then wouldn't it be like a boar or a mere or something? Alright, well, anyways, so while Trixie practically makes a confidence booster to try to make herself better, they get surprised by a changeling that is not yet reformed, and they're both stuffed in a bag.
What are you waiting for? Use some magic to get us out of here! Calm down, unscarable Trixie. We have to find out what's going on. Thorax might need our help. We need our help! Teleportation spell, go! Teleportation spell, go! Ah! Teleportation spell! Why do you keep doing that? No, it doesn't work that way.
Okay, but this, even if it's basically from one of the worst episodes of Season 7, at least it keeps in continuity with that.
I know! This is my process.
Basically, when I have to explain something that, basically how I do something at work that nobody seems to understand.
I captured these trespassers. Starlight! Trixie! It's okay, Barracks. You can let them go. But they were lurking on our grounds. In the old days, I would have already feasted on their nuts. Well, that's why they're called the old days, because they're old. We don't do that anymore.
So, yeah. So, essentially, it seems as if, well, as we have probably gotten hints of from the last episode, it seems that not all the changelings have completely reformed over to Thorax's new ways. As example, with this changeling named Thorax, who basically hates everything that is new.
What are you two doing here?
We wanted to surprise you. Surprise!
Well, it's great to see you. I'm sorry about the welcome committee.
I thought Ember helped you get more assertive so you could deal with all the renegade changelings who didn't want to change.
Oh, she did. Really helpful. I was able to convince all of them to change, except one of them.
Hooray for continuity, as I always say. Oh my god, it feels so good to know that all of Ember's teachings of teaching Thorax to be more assertive is paying off. My precious little changing leader is growing up to be a changeling man. Hooray for continuity!
My brother.
But essentially, this new character, Pharynx, turns out he is Thorax's brother, who, as we have seen, is not too keen on the new ways of the Changeling.
Eye shape?
What a ridiculous comparison. We are nothing alike. Stop doing that! I look better with hooves.
So because Pharynx is essentially stuck on the old ways of Chrysalis' evil ways, I don't know why he would think that, but essentially he's scaring pretty much everybody else in the Changeling hive.
Well, how about I show you the rest of the hive? We're less loud and bangy.
And we do get to see an inside tour of what the Changelings have been doing ever since they were reformed.
There's been a lot of changes since you were here last. I'm trying to start some new activities, since the only thing we did before was haunted patrol. There's Peter. Swing dancing. A once-a-week potluck lunch. Ooh, and who can change shape and organize craft time? This guy.
Oh my... I'm so proud of him. So it's nice to see that there were a lot of changes that happened into the Changelings ever since to wear him back again, and they seem to be working out for the better, but as I've stated earlier, Pharynx, wanting to stay in the old ways, is starting to irritate the other members of the hive as he essentially tries to basically pour black paint onto some of them, and basically they are getting irritated by him.
Pharynx used to be head of patrol, but now we're peaceful and there's no need to patrol, so he just stalks around the hive making everyone miserable. The other changelings are sick of it, and if I can't get them to accept love and friendship and change like the rest of us, everything I've done here is at risk.
So Starlight basically suggests that her and Trixie can go talk to Pharynx since they know what it's like to be outsiders.
Goes so well.
I put you in a bag. I thought it went great.
I gotta admit, Pharynx does, despite him still remaining as an evil changeling, he still gets some pretty itty snarky one-liner quips.
Hey. So, not a big fan of the vines, huh?
They're a safety hazard. An enemy could hide in them or use them as weapons. I don't even know why they're here.
Well, obviously, they could also be used, well, like you said, as weapons, but for strangulation.
Because they're pretty?
That's ridiculous.
Totally. We get you. But maybe don't express how you feel by destroying them?
I don't take advice from ponies. The only thing I take from you is breakfast. At least I used to.
You know, you're a lot like us.
Doubt it.
Why is he coming up with good, snarky remarks after another? It just cracks me up.
It's true. Do you know who Twilight Sparkle is?
No.
Wait a minute. He doesn't know who Twilight Sparkle is? If he really was falling under the command of Chrysalis, I'm sure she was probably talking about how much plotting and scheming she wanted to do to get back at her from a Canterlot wedding. So now it kind of reminds me, how come he never really appeared in a Canterlot wedding? But then again, I suppose at the time the Changelings were just being introduced, so they needed more variety. But still, how could he not know what his former leader's mortal enemy was? Really kind of raises a lot of questions, doesn't it?
Well, she's the most well-liked, studious, do-goodiest pony in Equestria.
Ugh, she sounds awful.
Oh, you hate her. I used to. She made me unsure about my place in the world, which led me to act out against her.
In more ways than one, but I am not going to go into yet another diatribe of why I hate Magic Duel, because that horse has been kicked so hard that you can see the Nike label on it.
And I used to be a dictator who ran a village with an iron hook.
Really? Maybe you two do understand me.
Yes, we do. But now, Trixie has come to terms with being second best.
I'm not even going to touch that.
And I no longer control ponies against their will.
With a few exceptions of every little thing she does, but you are still learning, so I digress.
And our lives are so much better for it.
Wow, so you're both losers.
I don't know what is up with this guy. He just always manages to crack me up somehow.
Stay away from me or I'll do to you what I did to the vines. Well, Operation Lead Mall Wharf Away is coming along.
So essentially, Starlight and Trixie decide to stick around for a bit as they basically go off to another edition of the Changeling Hive, the Feelings Forum, where essentially every single Changeling talks about their feelings.
Here I am, a green one. You can be anything you want to be. Be blue one day and purple the next. Be both on the same day.
It really fascinates me how the Changelings can come up with a feelings form like this. And you know what, now that I think about it, every single working group or even a club should have a feelings form so they can talk about what they're feeling. Especially in the workspace, because I feel like they need some kind of feelings form to deal with the stress in a 9-to-5 job. So, can somebody get on the fact that we need to put in a feelings form, please?
But then I feel like I'd be living a lie. It's very brave of you to share something so personal. Does anyone...
So while everybody continues to talk about...
Spends all his craft on making spears.
So essentially, while the Changelings continue to talk about their feelings, they continue to refer to Pharynx as you-know-who, and basically try to treat him like he's Voldemort.
He's scary and intimidating. You-know-who makes me uncomfortable.
He makes us all uncomfortable.
Everyone, please. I understand Pharynx can be challenging at times. That's an understatement. He lined the hallway with thorns.
He teaches little changelings to growl and hiss.
Well, given what we see in the Changelings, you should at least be thankful that he didn't teach him how to kick, bite, and punch everything.
My suit's too hot. What? I thought the feelings forum was for sharing our problems.
But essentially, Pharynx basically overhears and basically then vents.
Feelings forum is for talking about me behind my back.
The feelings forum is for talking about anything that's bothering you. Is there something you'd like to share, Pharynx?
Actually, there is. The Changelings used to be a fearsome swarm. Now we sit around talking about our feelings so much you can't even stop a mall work from eating all your pretty plants. I could have sent that thing packing before, but I guess now we'll just try to lead it away and hope that keeps us safe.
Yeah, and you do realize that your fearsome race almost took over Equestria and basically imprisoned all of its leaders. I think if you're stuck in the old ways, you were forgetting the fact that, oh yeah, you are considered to be evil by that logic. So essentially, after the feelings form disperses, because we get a funny line that the head of the feelings form just can't take it, Starlight and Trixie then get to this.
I'm all for second chances. Third even, but he just seems like a bad bug.
And Thorax has a duty to the whole hive, not just his brother.
If he keeps sticking up for Pharynx, the hive might decide they don't want Thorax as their leader.
I think he might have to kick Pharynx out.
Okay, so even though I can understand Starlight's logic with this. Well, yes, everybody usually deserves to have a second chance, maybe third if they're very frickin' generous. But at the end of the day, if it's just been nothing but a repeated offense that's been going on over and over again, I can understand Starlight's logic. And like she says in the episode, while it does go against Twilight's teaching, and while I do agree that everybody deserves a second chance, unless it is actionable, unless there are reasonable actions, unlike actions that are too reprehensible for me to look past, it's hard for me to give second chances. So essentially, while saying all this, Pharynx overhears all of this, and before Trixie and Starlight can suggest it, we get to have Thorax give a backstory of how he and Pharynx grew up, where pretty much, even as a young baby changeling, Thorax was just about the same as he is now, but because of that, the other changelings picked on him.
Step away from my brother. But Pharynx never let them hurt me.
We were just complimenting his dowlies.
And Pharynx can turn into that bug at a very young age? That's pretty impressive. Kind of makes you wonder how baby changelings can be able to transform in that amount. But then again, I'm sure Pharynx probably had enough time and experience. But yeah, based on the scene alone, we see that Pharynx and Thorax essentially have a relationship that's similar to Raph and Mikey, Yeah. I think in both the 2003 and the 2012 incarnations of Ninja Turtles, where Pharynx is essentially Raphael and Thorax is Michelangelo. As we then get to this humorous bit where Pharynx makes Thorax hit himself.
Why did you hit yourself? Stop hitting yourself! Why did you hit yourself? Ouch! Cut it out, Pharynx. You're right, you know. You need to have tougher skin.
Aw, that was a really sweet story.
Until the end, because again, that's just how Pharynx is. So, rather than basically coming up front with her plan, Starlight basically comes up with something else. And what does she end up doing? Essentially, she decides, I have a fantastic idea to try to make Pharynx a hero. I'm essentially going to take away all of the resources to keep the Malworth away, because essentially that is not a good idea. I'm probably stalling because it just seems like that web browser just crashed for some reason. Oh my god, you gotta be kidding me. So why does this have to happen to me now? Okay, I don't know what just happened, because it seems like there was like a delay on YouTube, but essentially just kind of getting back to the point, after hearing that story, Starlight basically tries to not tell Thorax the truth, because, you know, she's her friend. She instead decides to get the fantastic idea.
Problem to solve another. I switched the trail of plants around to lure them all over here. The Changelings may not be able to stop it anymore, but Pharynx certainly can.
Is that really a good idea? You're really saying that one Changeling can stop a Malworth like that? If it was a Changeling that had powerful magic, that would be one thing. But it isn't. It's just one Changeling against a foul beast. And essentially it doesn't get any better when Trixie reveals that Thorax essentially Pharynx left the hive.
Changelings that Pharynx left the hive for good.
And who's gonna stop the Dread Malworth? I'm leaving here!
And someone explain to me why she did that again? So yeah, it looks like Starlight basically came up with another whoopsie-daisy plan by essentially potentially harming the Changeling race. And so she goes to tell Thorax what essentially is happening.
And the Dread Malworth is coming this way!
That doesn't make any sense. The trail of plants should have led the Dread Malworth away.
I might have relayed them to lead it back toward the hive.
So to recap, Starlight, everything that you're doing to this race with the removing of the plants back to the hive is entirely your fault.
Why would you do that?
I thought if Pharynx saw you were in danger, the loving, caring side of him would come out when he protected you.
But instead he's out there alone, somewhere between us and that rampaging monster. I have to save him.
I'm coming with you.
Of course you are. This is all your fault.
Like I said, the continuous growth I am seeing in Thorax as a leader, and basically I give props to the episode for immediately calling out that this is Starlight's fault, but I will admit she did have good intentions, but again, this was entirely her fault, so I'm glad that the episode basically calls her out on it, so, and on top of that, it was a lot sooner than every little thing she does, but because of how strong the Dread Malworth is, one or two Changelings is not enough to take it on.
Don't be too hard on Starlight. Her heart was in the right place.
You're coming too.
Oh, right. I mean, I was gonna volunteer anyway.
Who else is coming?
But essentially, none of the Changelings wanted on the join to help Pharynx.
Fine.
Oh, sure. You can all stay here, not help Pharynx, and he won't bother you anymore. It's your choice. But remember when you didn't have a choice, when you were forced to obey Chrysalis. You might have been unstoppable, but you weren't free to choose. And now you are, because of Thorax. Well, it's his brother out there. And now it's your chance to prove you're just as strong embracing love as you were feeding on it. Now is your chance to show what changelings can really be. Not because you have to, but because you choose to!
Not since Return of the King have I seen a speech that motivating. It's too bad none of it really worked.
Amazingly epic speech, Starlight. I just can't believe not a single changeling was moved by it.
So essentially, in this new rule, all the changelings are essentially cowards. Because they just decided not to basically follow their leader or even have one bit of ounce of courage to basically say, you know what, maybe she did have a point. They instead just decided to let their leader basically save the life of her brother because, again, they are all cowards. I don't even know where to begin, honestly. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised since they are essentially basically a newly reformed race, but you would think that they would be able to come up with the backbone to start sticking up for themselves, but instead, no. It's like, no, let's just let our leader do all the work.
I can't blame them. If he wasn't my brother, I don't think I'd be here. We're gonna have to face the Mallwork by ourselves.
Yeah, so 4 ponies against an invincible Mallwork. That's really good. But essentially, they do come across Barons fighting the Dread Mallworth as they all join in on the fray, as we get a pretty kick-ass fight, but we do discover why the Dread Mallworth is very strong.
I may have forgotten to mention in my letters that Mallworks have really thick hides.
And thick hides basically equals to saying that the Dread Mallworth is invulnerable to magic. Okay, so they did basically listen to Starlight's speech, so that's good to know. So basically the Changelings, I'm assuming had a change of heart off screen, basically decide to join in the fray and help out Pharynx and the others. And it does seem to work, but the Dread Mallworth continues to prove that it's really strong. Oh my god, I don't know what is going on right now with YouTube. Why? So essentially, basically, make a long story short, eventually they figure out there is a way to try to defeat the Dread Mallworth. Because it is strong physically, they basically get the idea to get the Dread Mallworth to essentially hit itself. Oh, at first Thorax doesn't get it, but then he eventually realizes it. As thus the two brothers proceed to let the Dread Mallworth hit itself.
Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?
And Derek still giving me a bunch of laughs and all the while. So they eventually defeat eventually the Dread Mallworth is defeated and it retreats underground as everybody proceeds to celebrate.
What were you doing out here?
Leaving. I'm done with all of you.
Oh, it's just why bother fighting the Mallworth then? You could have left it alone.
Well, I couldn't just let it attack you.
But I thought you were done with us and...
Because maybe Thorax probably inherited his snarkiness from his brother. He really knows how to do reverse psychology. And I really love that my Changeling leader is becoming a more and more mature leader by the minute. It fills me with so much joy watching this episode.
You didn't care.
I never said that. The hive is the thing I care about most.
Well, you certainly don't act like it.
Well, I'm sorry if I don't get excited about pretty flowers and feelings.
I think it's pretty much every time when somebody admits, when they first watch the show, they don't want to show that they're getting into it, but then they eventually come forward with their feelings and they say that they're not into it, but they're totally into it. Oh, God, this feels so good. But essentially, the goodness eventually comes over Pharynx, and thus he finally is able to change, and it's essentially not any different from the other changing forms. I think the only difference with Pharynx's reformed changeling form is that his skin is dark green. He has red horns, well, red devil horn things, purple wings, and essentially basically some jewels in the center and purple wings. So I'm guessing he has a bit of a darker shade color of his reformed spell, reformed thing. Alright, I didn't think this was going to happen because this was working earlier today. Alright, so essentially after Thorax once again calls out Starlight for saying, well, this is pretty much all your fault, the episode ends with the newly reformed Pharynx basically telling a story of how Thorax grew up, and that was to change a changeling, and it was a really enjoyable episode. I guess really there are just the occasional plot holes this episode has, like essentially why did Starlight think it was a good idea to endanger the changelings in the first place, but we do get to see a lot of good world building around the episode, and on top of that, Pharynx was just a fun character to watch. It was just very humorous that made me laugh out loud, but we also get to see how much growth of a leader Thorax has become as we got to see him grow as a ruler. It was definitely nice to see Starlight still trying to learn and grow, and I like how the episode just immediately calls her out on her problems right off the bat. So this is really an all-around great episode to watch. I wouldn't really say it was one of my absolute favorites. I mean, it's right up there. I really enjoyed the episode. It's probably like a top 5 episode. There really wasn't really anything wrong with the episode, so overall, I think the final rating for To Change a Changeling is probably an A. I think the only thing that I could really criticize is just how overly. I think it's just kind of the interpretation of just the changelings themselves. I mean, yeah, it's nice to see them reformed and all, but you would have thought that they would have given them like a special chance or anything like that. Not when I don't know what I'm talking about. There really isn't much to complain about the episode. It's just occasional nitpicks. There's nothing really wrong with the episode. It was just an all-around blast to watch. So yeah, so To Change a Changeling is an A. Alright, so with that, that's another episode down. So I'm Slick Cam Gamer, and next time we are going to be taking a look at Daring Done. And there it is. See you guys next time. Bye.